Greetings, everyone. It has been 39 days since my last build release, and I think it's time for a new one. I think I can confidently say that a lot has been added into this build, and I'm really excited to show it off. Before I get into the changes, though, for anyone that's new here and doesn't know what I'm working on, let me give a quick explanation. SOS Forgotten Planet is an educational horror game that teaches people Morse code. Players wake up in what remains of a lab on a planet that has been almost completely destroyed. They will have to navigate their way through a procedurally generated world to uncover the mystery of what has caused the destruction and secure an escape from the Forgotten Planet. The gameplay revolves around inputting Morse code to open doors and listening to Morse code so they can open and loot chests to get what's needed to survive. Also, there's monsters that try to kill you, but, that's typical. The last playtest had functional Morse code mechanics in a procedurally generated world and a very basic enemy that I lovingly have called Steve. There wasn't much beyond that though, and in this build I hope to add a lot more depth to what is happening while exploring. There still isn't any story or long-term goals for the player, but the core loop should be in a much better place. So without any further delay, let's dive into the changes. The first change is I gave Steve the ability to smash doors when the player blocks his path. He also will, on spawn, destroy some doors in several rooms around him, meaning he's more likely to run into the player. In earlier versions of the playtest, you could kind of just lock him in a door and he would just stay there and he wouldn't be much of a threat. So now he will be a constant threat to you and will pretty much always be bumping into you and scaring the bejesus out of you. So that's, I think, is a great improvement. Additionally, I added health, so the monster no longer just one-shots the player if he's close to him. He'll instead just try to smash you if you're close to him, which will damage you if he hits you. You can also now find bandages in the lab, which will heal you back up in case you get damaged. I've added a stress mechanic that is represented by just a number in a bar. It gradually increases while you're in the lab, and if you fail to correctly guess the chest code. Those sirens are actually quite stressful. On the flip side, if you answer a chest correctly, you'll lose a bit of stress and can also find sedatives in the lab that further reduce the stress. Why does stress matter? Well, that's a good question. We added a new threat in the shadowy form of Joseph, another monster. Joseph will appear if your stress crosses over the 50% mark, and also gets more dangerous as your stress increases from there. While he doesn't outright attack you, his very presence damages you, but it will also reduce your stress. Lowering stress to 40% will make him go back to his shadowy hidey hole. We've added Morse code difficulty options, so you can tune the gameplay to your experience level. There's two values to tweak, words per minute and Farnsworth time. Words per minute controls how fast each dit or da in the Morse code is, and Farnsworth time just adds a little bit more spacing between letters, so it kind of makes it easier to distinguish, at first at least, what is a letter and what is just a large section of code. There's also some presets that you'll get when you're starting the game, so if you don't know what is a good value, you can just kind of use one of those. I've generally done a little bit of a tuning pass, although it's still pretty rough, but it should now really be a lot easier at first. And there's now 15 levels of a difficulty curve instead of 6, where the 6 before was quite brutal. That's now basically up to the 15 area. So there's a lot more gradations. It should take a lot longer to explore. And generally, it should just be a much more filled out experience. I've added portals that you can kind of find while exploring deeper into the lab, and this will actually bring you back to the safe zone that you first start out in. And this just allows you to take a break, relax a little bit, and also upgrade with all the stuff you found in the lab, which there's some cool upgrades to get. Speaking of those upgrades, what can you actually make? So the first are ones that reduce your incoming stress, and the second is one that gives you access to a thing called the permission system. The permission system allows you to store your previously opened doors, so whenever you open one with Morse code, it kind of holds it in the side, and then you can close them again with a single key press, which is very useful when you open the door and Steve is right there. You might want to close it pretty quickly. Now on to the minor changes. I'm testing out a change where the chests only play their sounds when prompted via the player interaction or the terminal. Before they would just kind of beep constantly, But there are some issues there with there's two chests that are kind of near each other, and I also just find it weird that they're just constantly beeping. So I'm going to try this out, and I'm going to test it out, see how people feel. If people hate it, we'll figure out something else, but I think it's a better change in the end. I've added a pause menu that actually pauses the game, specifically now because there's a mechanic that if you are just sitting idly, you'll get stress. It's kind of important to have a pause menu that actually pauses the game, so this is just kind of a small, nice thing. I've done some visual effects, including a camera bob and some just kind of general post-processing and stuff to make things pretty or scarier. It just depends on how you want to measure it, but the game should look a little bit nicer to kind of move around it. As a minor thing, I've also made the loading screen look a little bit nicer. It kind of looks like a little portal thing now, which I think is cool considering you're mostly seeing it when you're going through a portal. I've added some text each time you enter a zone, so you'll actually know what level you are on. Just a nice little add-on there too. I've done as well another task on my little tutorial zone. It still isn't the final version by any means, but I think it should be a lot less idiot-proof. I think, hopefully, I don't know, we'll find out in probably a few days, but I think it's a lot better than it used to be. So hopefully we can get a lot more people through there without having to struggle too much. And lastly, I have added a bunch of little sounds every here and there. I think it's surprising how much sounds will actually make an impact when you get them. Again, they're still not everywhere, and they're still not the best sounds. Probably could be there, but it should be a lot more filled out with some sounds around the world. So look or hear, listen to those when you get into the build.
All right, that's it for now. If you're looking to try out the game, there will be a download link in my Discord, which you can join in the link in the description. I will be working on a Steam page soon, and I will do my best to update the description with that when it's up, it will also have the link to the demo. I have some pretty cool plans coming up for what's next, but I'm going to put that in another video because I don't want to get this one too long. So stay tuned for that. That's all for now, and I'll let Steve see you out.